The clatter of treads shreds the frozen air. 200 steel beasts, marked with crosses, halt for a breather. Moscow is 15 kilometers away. December 1941. The mercury has plunged to minus 34 degrees. The ground rings like iron under boots. Ahead lies the freezing capital. Standing in the path of the German Panzer Armada is a single KV-1 heavy tank and 7 dead men walking. According to the manual, their chance of survival is 0. The German vanguard cuts its engines. The silence lasts exactly 1 heartbeat. An explosion thumps to the right. Frozen mud slams against the glacis plate. The crew huddles against the steel. Serik Bey, the 19-year-old loader, grinds his teeth. His knuckles are white against the gun's breech. His body is racked with tremors. The cold seeps under his tunic, but it's not the frost making him shake. It's the rumble of the earth. 200 engines are putting out a vibration that rattles his very bones. Tank Commander Nursultan Janbershin peers through the periscope, his eyes narrowed in a dry squint. Before the war, he pumped oil. A petroleum engineer by trade, he was used to pressure in the pipes. Now he's gauging the pressure of the Wehrmacht's armored juggernaut. Orders are to hold the column for 24 hours. A full day in a frozen trench against an entire division. Janbershin pulls away from the glass. He turns to the crew, his face a mask. "Listen up," the commander's voice cuts through the stale air of the fighting compartment. "We don't take them head-on. We wait." Serik Bey swallows hard. His throat is parched. "Comrade Commander, there are hundreds of them. They'll wipe us out in a minute." Janbershin wipes the periscope lens with a greasy rag. Another shell from the lead scouts lands short. The tank's hull shudders. 47 tons of Soviet steel absorb the impact. The frontal armor is 75 millimeters thick, but against the concentrated fire of a vanguard, that's just delaying the inevitable. "They'll wipe us out if they see us," Janbershin says, tossing the rag aside. "We aren't going to let them see us. Check your nerves. Check the racks." The clack of the breech block sounds louder than their breathing. Muscle memory takes over for panic. The loader slaps the shell. Ready. The surrounding forest is frozen into a glass labyrinth. Branches snap in the frost. The sound carries for miles. German drivers climb out of their hatches. Laughter drifts over. They warm their hands over exhaust pipes, cracking open their rations. Their cockiness is earned. Their technical superiority is overwhelming. In the Soviet trench behind the tank, the supporting infantry cycle the bolts of their Mosin Nagants. The metal sears skin through thin gloves. The grease is congealing. The guns could jam at any second. Janbershin knows it. He knows the physics of the cold. He knows the properties of fuel and lubricants. The radio op presses his headset close. Through the crackle of static, HQ's voice breaks through. "Hold the line. No reserves. Out." No promises of backup, just a cold order. Janbershin nods to himself. The mission is clear. An explosion to the left, a pine tree snaps in half. Shrapnel pings off the turret. Their ears ring. "Armor piercing," Janbershin commands. Serik Bey rams the shell home. The breech block slams shut. The acrid stench of cordite and frozen grease fills the cramped space. Breathing is hard. Condensation settles on the armor and turns instantly to frost. Another incoming round. It lands 30 meters away. The shockwave hurls frozen clods of earth. One hits the driver's open hatch. The driver curses under his breath, wiping dirt from his face. "Cut the engine," Janbershin orders. "We'll freeze, Commander. The diesel will gel," the driver rasps. kill it. They'll hear us. The engine coughs and dies. Silence falls like a multi-ton slab. Now, all they can hear is the howl of the wind and the distant drone of German prime movers. The cold launches its offensive immediately. The temperature inside the tank plummets by the second. The armor leaches the heat from their bodies. White steam puffs from their mouths. Jean Berchin looks at his watch. The hand moves in jerks. Time seems to freeze along with their blood. A day. They need to buy a day. 24 hours. 1,440 minutes. Every minute is bought with absolute strain. Serik Bey, Jean Berchin says without turning. You got brothers? No, sir. Just me. Then you're obligated to survive. You hear me? Understood. The conversation ends. War has no room for long talks. The optics pick up movement. Enemy scouts on motorcycles. 5 sidecar rigs. 7.92mm machine guns are trained on the woods. The riders move slowly, headlights off, looking for an ambush. Jean Berchin puts a hand on the gunner's shoulder. His fingers grip the heavy wool of the pea coat. Hold your fire. Let them pass. The gunner's breathing is tight. The crosshairs settle on the lead gunner's chest. His finger trembles on the trigger. One twitch, and the position is compromised. The whole column will traverse their turrets. 200 barrels will turn this patch of woods into a plowed field. The motorcycles pass 50 meters out. German chatter is audible. The crunch of snow under tires. The smell of gasoline reaches them even here. Jean Berchin flares his nostrils. The engineer's instinct flares. Gasoline. The enemy is running on gas engines. A vulnerability. A rhythmic clatter echoes from the woods. German tankers are starting maintenance. The ring of hammers on metal grates on the nerves. Jean Berchin's engineering brain calculates the enemy's logistics. To move 200 machines at -34, they need to warm up. They need fuel. Lots of it. The vulnerability isn't the frontal armor. The weak point is the internal combustion engines. Driver. The commander's voice is dry. Get out. Crawl to the infantry. Find their CO. Tell him we need snowsuits. What for, Commander? Just do it. The driver slips silently out of the hatch. The snow swallows his silhouette. Jean Berchin stays in the turret with Serik Bey and the gunner. The frost deepens. Their feet lose all feeling. Serik Bey shifts his weight. His boots clink against the metal. Quiet, the commander snaps. Stand still. Serik Bey freezes. Frostbite needles his toes. He takes it. The order is more important than the pain. 30 minutes later, the hatch creaks. The driver scrambles back inside. His face is white with cold, an icy crust on his lips. Contact made. They're coming. Good. A flare bursts in the distance. Yellow light floods the pine tops. The flare dies. Pitch black again. Movement to the right, the gunner hisses. The main gun is still. They can't traverse the turret. The electric drive is too loud. Manual only. Slow only. The gunner cranks the wheel. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple. Ice crunches on the turret ring. Hold, Jean Berchin commands. They freeze, listening. German voices drift from the dark. An infantry patrol. 3 soldiers in white camo moving in a line, submachine guns at the ready. They're sweeping the brush in front of the tank park. 80 meters from the Soviet position. 70. 60. Breaths hitch. Serik Bey reaches for the machine gun's spade grip. "Hands off," Jean Bashin whispers. A German soldier stops. He looks right at the camouflaged tank. He raises a hand, signaling his buddies. He's spotted something. An unnatural curve in a snowdrift. A glint of armor. Blood pounds in Serik Bey's temples. A second stretches into hours. The loader waits for the shout, the tracers, and the blast of a shaped charge. The German takes a step forward. A thick branch snaps loudly under his boot. The sound cracks like a rifle shot. The soldier curses under his breath, brushes snow off his knee, and turns away. The patrol moves off to the left, vanishing behind the trees. An exhale. Jean Bashin doesn't move. "Remember that feeling," he tells the loader. "That's the scent of fear." Serik Bey nods frantically. The commander has already made his decision. The tank stays here. Ahead is a stealthy sortie. 7 men against a division. No artillery support. Just the frost, the dark, and precise engineering. The math is done. The equation can't be solved head-on. Engineer Jean Bashin is calculating his strike. The tank is hauled down in the frozen earth up to its turret. The narrow forest defile is locked tight. To the left lies an impassable frozen marsh, solid under 5 feet of ice. To the right rises a thick deadfall of tangled, centuries-old pines. The only road fit for tanks runs through this bottleneck. 47 tons of Soviet steel have been turned into a fixed pillbox. Snow carefully hides the turret's lines. The long gun barrel is draped in fir branches. The driver pulls a tarp over the engine deck. His fingers barely move in the cold. His fingernails are blue. In a deep slit trench, dug right under the roots of a massive uprooted pine, 7 men gather. The heavy tank's scratch crew and the supporting infantry. The air inside the shelter is thick with the sour reek of unwashed bodies, gun oil, cordite, and damp, biting earth. The frost cuts to the bone, ignoring greatcoats and padded jackets. The earthen ceiling hangs low, a dark, crushing mass. Breathing is hard. Oxygen is low. Jean Bashin presses the cold ebonite receiver of the field phone to his ear. A thick cable runs through the snow to the infantry screen. The line crackles and cuts out. "Pine, this is Cliff. Get snowsuits ready, and soap. Fast." A long silence hangs on the other end. Static fills the gap. "Repeat, Cliff. What soap?" "Standard issue, laundry soap, 24 bars. Now, move!" Jean Bashin slams the receiver down. Questions just waste time. Right now, time is measured in degrees below zero and the distance to German patrols. 40 minutes later, a frost-covered runner crawls into the trench. He's dragging a heavy canvas sack. A hard load thumps inside. Snow camouflage is tossed carelessly into a corner. Jean Bashin unties the frozen neck of the bag. With a sharp jerk, he dumps the contents onto a spread-out ground sheet. 24 bars. Standard laundry soap. In the 30 below frost, it's turned to stone. The color's the shade of dirty, murky ice. The commander pulls out his combat knife. The wide blade glints dully in the bunker's gloom. "Listen up for the mission." Jean Bashin's voice is steady, bone dry. "Tonight we're hitting their fuel tanks. We dump shavings inside." Serik Bey looks from the commander to the soap. The eyes of the 19-year-old farm boy are full of genuine confusion. "Comrade Commander, that's just soap. And German tanks are made of iron." Jean Bashin drags the sharp blade hard across the stone-like bar. With a nasty, grating screech, A thin whitish strip curls off. This is concentrated lye and tallow. They've got synthetic fuel in their tanks. It's -34 out there. Soap shavings won't dissolve in cold gasoline. They swell up instantly. The commander stabs the knife hard into the frozen dirt. It creates a thick emulsion, a sticky, viscous sludge. It'll choke every fuel filter they have. The fuel lines will seize. The pumps will burn out from the load. The engines will devour themselves from the inside out. The pistons will seize tight. 200 war machines will turn into 200 chunks of dead, useless iron. The physics and chemistry of war do not fail. Zanbershin's engineering is flawless. Only one problem remains: execution. Get your knives out. Shave it as fine as you can. We need a fine powder. Big chunks will just sink to the bottom and won't do a damn thing.
Let's get to work. 6 soldiers silently grab the icy bars. They pull out rifle bayonets, captured Finnish knives, and entrenching tools. The grueling work begins. The rasp of dull steel against frozen lye fills the cramped hole. The sound is monotonous, drilling into the brain. The soap fights the blade like solid granite. Blades slip constantly, skidding off the smooth surface. After 10 minutes of non-stop work, the men's fingers begin to cramp painfully. Their hands go completely numb from the brutal strain and the seeping cold. The shavings fall onto the tarp mockingly slow. The whitish pile barely grows. Sedek Bey puts his whole weight onto the short handle of his bayonet. The blade slips suddenly. Cold steel slices deep into his calloused thumb. Dark, wet droplets drip steadily onto the white soap shavings in the gloom. The loader hisses loudly through clenched teeth. "Keep going," Zanbershin says coldly. He's furiously rubbing a bar against a coarse file taken from the tank's toolkit. His movements are like a machine piston. Up, down, no pauses. The sharp pain fades into the background. Only pure mechanical effort remains. Grind the stubborn block into fine dust. 100 heavy strokes for a single gram of future emulsion. Blisters worn to bloody meat burn unbearably. The caustic lye seeps into the raw wounds and eats away at the living tissue. An older infantryman sitting next to Sedek Bey groans softly, a long, low sound. The wooden handle of his knife is slick with his own blood. He silently switches the blade to his other hand. He keeps shaving. A long, agonizing hour passes. The pile of soap dust grows noticeably. The men's breathing becomes heavy and raspy. The air in the cramped bunker turns thick. Suddenly, the ambient noise shifts. A distinct crunch comes from outside. Dry, sharp, rhythmic. The frozen crust of snow creaks under heavy, hobnailed German jackboots. Zanbershin instantly raises a clenched fist. The silent command: hold. 6 bloody knives freeze in midair. The hideous scraping stops instantly. The sudden silence thrums against their eardrums. The creak of foreign footsteps draws closer. 2 men. They're walking right over the hidden bunker. Their path crosses the tank's position. The shallow earthen ceiling of the hole shudders slightly. Dry, icy dirt trickles down Sedek Bey's collar. The 19-year-old squeezes his eyes shut. He stops breathing entirely. His chest begins to burn from the lack of oxygen. The armed enemy is standing right on top of them. One careless sneeze, one accidental clink of metal,
and it's over. A German jackboot crunches through the snow crust just 4 inches from the narrow air vent. Loud, guttural German voices ring out. The first soldier complains irritably about the unbearable Russian frost. His voice is muffled by the snow, but the words are clear. The second soldier gives a short reply. The sharp, metallic flick of a petrol lighter is unmistakable. The cloying scent of high-grade tobacco quickly seeps through the tangled tree roots. The smoke is drawn slowly into the hole, mixing with the smell of sweat and blood. Jean Berchin slowly, calculating every millimeter of movement, lowers his right hand to his pistol holster. He silently unbuttons the stiff flap and draws his heavy Tokarev pistol. His thumb carefully nudges the safety. If the snow ceiling collapses, a point-blank firefight is inevitable. Killing the German patrol would blow their cover instantly. The mission would fail. The tank would be destroyed by artillery. The road to the capital would be left wide open. The entire strategic equation narrows to a single point. Right here, in this icy, dark pit. Sedek Bey can feel a large bead of icy sweat rolling down his frost-bitten face. Fine alkaline dust gets into his nostrils. His sinuses burn unbearably. An uncontrollable urge to cough rises. A spasm grips his dry throat. In desperation, the boy bites down on his thick wool sleeve. The distinct taste of trench mud and his own warm blood fills his mouth. He endures. His body hysterically demands a cough to clear his airway, but iron will suppresses the reflex. The young loader's face turns a deep crimson in the gloom. Above, they keep shuffling. A spit. The Germans toss a half-smoked butt. The cherry hisses softly in the snow, right over the radio op's head. The creak of heavy boots starts up again. The sentries move off. The sound of footsteps fades. It gets quieter. Quieter still. Finally, it dissolves into the steady howl of the winter wind. Jean Berchin lets out a long breath. He puts the pistol back on safe, holsters the weapon, and buttons the flap. Get back to it. The knives bite into the stubborn soap with renewed fury. The pace accelerates. The primal terror they just felt hardens into cold, controlled rage. Rage converts into brute physical force. White shavings fly onto the tarp much faster. Fresh blood from smashed knuckles mixes with the grey soap mass. What lies on the ground sheet is no longer a hygiene product. It's an improvised chemical weapon. Another 2 agonizing hours pass. All 24 bars are ground into fine powder. 20 kilograms of corrosive grit are carefully gathered into sturdy canvas bags. Jean Berchin ties the knots himself, hand-checking the weight of each charge. "Don your snowsuits," comes the dry, quiet command. The exhausted soldiers pull the bulky white smocks over their greatcoats and tank jackets. The cotton fabric is stiff, frozen through. It stands rigid and rustles unpleasantly. Personal weapons are readied. They fix bayonets. In their hands, they hold only knives and sharpened entrenching tools. Using firearms in the enemy camp is strictly forbidden. The commander looks his group over. 6 shapeless white shadows frozen in the cramped hole. Their faces are smudged with exhaustion, soot, and ground-in dirt. Their eyes are bloodshot from strain and corrosive dust. "Moving to the jump-off point. Driver stays in the tank. Wait for my signal." Jean Berchin feels the ribbed bodies of the grenades on his belt. He carefully pushes aside the prickly fir branches covering the narrow exit. A harsh, icy wind slams into his face. The night blizzard is intensifying. Visibility plummets to 5 meters. It's perfect weather for a stealthy sabotage op, weather that kills the weak and hides the desperate. One by one, the saboteurs step into the howling white void. Their target? The motor pool of the sleeping German armored armada. The engineering trap is set to spring. The snowstorm blurs the line between sky and earth. Visibility drops to absolute zero. 6 shapeless white shadows dissolve into the roaring gloom. Janbershin leads. The wind hits his chest with enough force to knock him down. The airspeed exceeds 45 miles per hour. The minus 34-degree temperature turns this mass of air into an invisible saw blade. Icy grit methodically shreds the calloused skin of their faces. They can only breathe through tightly clenched teeth, frantically turning away from the direct gusts. The driver stayed behind in the frozen gut of the Soviet heavy tank. His only job is to wait. The rest are walking straight into the belly of the beast. No man's land no longer exists. There is only the blinding white void and a pulsing, icy fear. Step by step, knee-deep in thick, powdery snow, every meter gained is bought with immense physical effort. Their frostbitten feet haven't felt solid ground in a long time. Their only support is the commander's steel will. After 40 minutes of grueling marching, a brand new sound breaks through the constant howl of the blizzard. The steady, heavy hum of hundreds of cooling machines. Then the smell hits. The sharp, chemical stench of high-grade synthetic fuel and burnt lubricant. The group has come out right in the heart of the German motor pool. Massive steel silhouettes loom through the blizzard like gray monoliths. 200 war machines. Panzers are lined up in tight, even rows. Turrets are neatly covered with canvas tarps. The metal contracts in the bitter frost, emitting sharp metallic pings. German crews are sleeping inside heated fighting compartments, or warming up in deep bunkers dug next to the vehicles. Sentries are posted around the camp. Janbershin snaps his hand up. The gesture means absolute attention. 6 Soviet soldiers freeze instantly. Their hearts pound with such monstrous force that the beats echo in their temples. With short, clipped gestures, the commander designates targets. 2 men to a machine. 19-year-old Sedek Bey glides silently toward the nearest panzer. The side armor is coated in a thick crust of ice. His hands, in thin, holey gloves, slip helplessly against the smooth metal. The loader feels for the fuel filler cap. The heavy metal cap is frozen solid to the threads. Sedek Bey pulls out a captured knife. The narrow blade slides carefully into a microscopic gap. A light, calculated levering motion. The snap of breaking ice sounds like a literal cannon shot in the boy's inflamed brain. He turns to stone. He listens intently. Nothing. Only the steady howl of the winter wind. The cap slowly gives way. The sharp smell of fuel hits his nostrils hard. Gasoline sloshes deep in the tank. With stiff fingers, Sedek Bey unties the tight neck of the canvas bag. He scoops up a handful of soap shavings. The frozen, concentrated lye is mixed with his own dried blood from torn blisters. He pours the whitish grit into the dark hole. The powder falls into the icy fuel with a faint hiss. The reaction is now underway. The soap begins to swell rapidly in the cold gasoline, turning into a thick, sticky death for the German engines. Janbershin works monotonously at the next machine. His calculated movements are perfectly precise and mechanical. Open the cap, dump the lye, seal it tight. No wasted emotion, just dry engineering. The wind abruptly fails. A powerful gust cuts out, leaving behind a ringing, dead silence.
At that exact second, the filler cap slips from the frostbitten hands of Serok Bey's partner. The heavy piece of knurled metal strikes hard against the sloped armor plate. A loud clang rings out like a bell over the sleeping park. Serok Bey freezes. His breathing stops completely. A dark silhouette emerges instantly from behind the tracks of the neighboring tank. A sentry. A carbine hangs from his right shoulder. The German soldier spins toward the sound of clanking metal. The beam of a flashlight cuts through the thick darkness. The pale circle of light slides quickly over the icy road wheels, climbs higher, and ruthlessly catches the white figure of the frozen Soviet saboteur in the gloom. The German opens his mouth wide to scream for help. His hand frantically yanks the leather carbine strap from his shoulder. Time collapses. Animal fear vanishes, completely replaced by the primal instinct for survival. Serok Bey lunges forward without a sound. He clears the 10-foot gap in one predatory leap, right onto the leveled rifle barrel. The young loader's left hand clamps over the German sentry's mouth, smashing his lips against his teeth with a crunch. His right hand, gripping the blade tight, strikes upward. A short, horrific blow from below, right under the steel rim of the helmet. The blade sinks deep into the soft flesh of the neck. A spray of unnaturally hot blood sears Serok Bey's fingers. The German thrashes desperately in his death spasms. His heavy jackboots scrape against the frozen ground, making a dull sound. The Soviet soldier throws his entire weight onto the enemy, pinning the thrashing body hard against the tank's icy armor. The cold metal muffles the frantic thumping. The convulsions gradually weaken. The German sentry's eyes are wide open in the dark, reflecting the dim light of the flashlight fallen in the snow.
Serok Bey can physically feel the life ebbing from the body. The struggle fades. The body goes completely limp. The loader slowly, trying not to make a sound, lowers the dead German onto the trampled snow. The foreign blood on his hands freezes instantly, tightening over his skin in a stiff, sticky crust. Jean Berchin looms silently out of the surrounding dark. He doesn't look at the corpse at all. He looks straight into Serok Bey's blown-out eyes. The commander gives a short, affirmative nod. There is no going back. The point of no return has been crossed. Either they kill these engines tonight, or they stay in the snow forever next to this sentry. With a commanding gesture, Jean Berchin points to the next war machine. The sabotage group continues its grim work. Unseen death walks silently through the tank park, methodically pouring homemade lye into the steel veins of the German vanguard. The machines are infected. All that's left is to wait for the cold dawn. Dawn bleeds through the gray veil of the blizzard. This December morning in 1941 brings a cold that cuts to the bone. The thermometer reads -35. A damp wind sears the face. Steel fuses to skin even through wool mittens. The German camp comes to life. A barked command rings out. A German colonel gives the signal to march. Objective, Moscow. Distance, 15 kilometers. Crews take their positions. Heavy hatches clang shut. Icy track links clatter. Drivers hit the starters. The silence fractures. 200 engines try to turn over at once. Starters wail. Batteries surrender their final amps. The first motors reluctantly catch. Exhaust pipes belch blue-gray smoke. The tanks warm up at idle. The routine runs like clockwork. Synthetic fuel begins to circulate through the lines. Pumps draw fuel from the tanks. Death has matured overnight. The laundry soap has soaked up the fuel completely. The corrosive lye has reacted. A bloated gray emulsion crawls slowly through the pipes. Thick, sticky, inevitable.
11 heavy vehicles of the vanguard lurch forward. Steel behemoths crawl into the forest defile. Treads crush the frozen ground. A deep ravine stretches to the left. Deadfall hangs over the right. The road is exactly 1 tank wide. Maneuver is impossible. The lead vehicle takes the first hit. The emulsion reaches the fuel filter. Microscopic mesh cells clog tight. System pressure drops to 0. The pump roars from the overload. Pistons run dry. A shrill screeching rings out. The engine chokes. Black smoke erupts from the engine compartment. The lead tank dips its nose sharply and grinds to a halt. Treads lock up. The second vehicle slams into the rear of the first at speed. The driver hits the brakes, but the ice crust offers no traction. A dull thud. Fenders crumple. At that moment, the second tank's filters choke on soapy slime. The motor dies with the brittle sound of snapping metal. Third. Fourth. Fifth. The column has ground to a halt. A chain reaction of chemical collapse paralyzes the vanguard. 11 tanks freeze in a line. The defile is corked. The tactical trap has snapped shut. Panic flares on the radio. Intercepts record the chaos. Lead is down, engines dead, shafts jammed. Number 2 stalled, no fuel pressure. Open the filters immediately! A minute later, the airwaves explode. Some kind of slime, thick gray crap in the tanks. This isn't fuel. German tankers throw back the hatches. They climb onto the armor with wrenches. They don't understand the cause. They only see the effect. 200 meters away, beneath the roots of a pine tree, a snowdrift comes to life. A 76mm barrel lowers. The crosshairs settle on the side of the lead vehicle. Inside the KV-1 turret, it smells of machine oil. Jean Berchin presses his face to the panoramic sight. Pure, cold calculation. The enemy is paralyzed. The range is perfect. Armor piercing. The commander's voice cuts the silence. 19-year-old Sarek Bey rams a heavy shell into the breach. The block clanks shut with a dull thud. Ready! Fire! The tank shudders. The roar of the shot hammers the eardrums. Recoil kicks the machine back. A plume of flame erupts from the barrel. Snow evaporates. The shell pierces the air, covering 200 meters in a fraction of a second. Impact. The tungsten core rips through the hull beneath the turret. Armor is breached. The ammo rack detonates inside. The heavy turret is torn from its ring with a screech. The blast wave hurls tons of metal aside. A pillar of fire rises 30 meters. German tankers on the armor of neighboring vehicles freeze. Shock lasts a second. Then the slaughter begins. High explosive, Jean Berchin commands. The clang of the breach. A click. Ready. Fire! The second shot shreds the escort infantry. Shrapnel hacks through the men in gray greatcoats. Blood stains the snow black. There is nowhere to hide in the narrow corridor. Ravine on the left, deadfall on the right. A burning wreck in front. Armor piercing. On the tail vehicle. Breach. Shell. Shot. The rear tank takes a slug to the engine compartment. Gas tanks ignite. Burning fuel spills across the ground. The column is locked tight. 11 machines burn brightly in the corridor. Inside the tank,
The assembly line of destruction begins. The crew's movements are automatic. Ready. Fire! The casing clatters. Red-hot brass hits the iron floor. Acrid smoke fills the turret. The fan can't keep up. Eyes water. Breathing comes in shallow gasps. 11 German machines are executed at point-blank range. Armor cracks. Metal melts. German crews try to return fire, but the manual turret traverses are frozen. Those who manage to lay their guns fire blind. Shells burst in the woods. The KV-1 remains invisible. It is dug in, hidden by the smoke of the burning tanks. Armor-piercing, Jean Berchin repeats monotonically. Sarek Bey works like clockwork. Fingers are rubbed raw.
Back muscles burn like fire. Shell, breach, recoil, casing. Shell. Dozens of shots merge into one continuous roar. The enemy's radio turns into a death rattle. Commanders demand help. Mechanics scream about clogged filters. Infantry begs for support. The vanguard ceases to exist in 30 minutes. Homemade chemistry and a tank barrel have broken the back of the Wehrmacht's wedge. Jean Berchin looks through the periscope. Burning hulks block the road. Minimum objective achieved. Delay secured. The division is halted, but the battle is just beginning. 200 tanks, a massive weight of steel. German recon spots the KV-1's muzzle flashes. Radio operators transmit precise coordinates. The enemy recovers. In the rear, the barrels of heavy 150mm howitzers slowly rise. Crews ram shells home. Gunners spin handwheels. Barrels aim at a narrow sector of the forest. Guns are loaded. The order to open fire sounds through the receivers. Shells sit on the trays. Lanyards are taut. A massive retaliatory strike is inevitable. The heavens prepare to collapse onto the frozen earth. The sky over the forest tears apart. German artillerymen fire blind, but they fire in tight groups. Heavy 150mm field howitzers methodically plow square after square. Shells snap ancient pines like dry matches. Wood instantly turns into razor-sharp shrapnel. Hundreds of splinters pierce through padded jackets, sinking into flesh. Shockwaves pack the fluffy snow into gray concrete. The air grows thick, smelling of burnt explosives, ozone, and torn earth. 6 Soviet saboteurs crawl back toward their lines. Jean Berchin leads, forging a path through fresh debris. The men's breathing breaks into a ragged wheeze. Lungs burn from the icy air. Sweat pours into eyes, freezing on eyelashes into stinging crystals. Every meter gained comes through unbearable muscle pain. Behind them, through the veil of snowfall, their heavy tank thunders monotonically. The gun methodically executes the paralyzed column. The tank draws all attention, inviting the furious return fire of German batteries. The ground trembles continuously under the bellies of the crawling men. "Keep up! Maintain 5-meter spacing!" the commander mutters without looking back. His voice is drowned in the roar of nearby bursts. The perfect engineering plan is fraying under the pressure of superior forces. The chaos of real night combat takes hold. The probability of a clean extraction drops by the second. Fresh shell craters smoke with hot, upturned earth. The men drop into these craters to wait out another devastating salvo, swallowing dust before crawling forward again on raw elbows. A short dash, a drop behind a fallen log, another sharp lunge. 200 meters of open ground remain before the safety of the tank trench. Ahead, a deep forest hollow looms. At its very bottom sits an abandoned German half-track. The heavy machine got stuck fast in the mire yesterday morning. The crew left for their own lines long ago.
The frozen steel hulk blocks the only safe path of retreat. John Bershin is the first to slide down the steep slope, braking with his boots. The others slide silently after him. Mukhtar, an infantryman, brings up the rear. He takes a wrong, weary step. The worn rubber soles of his captured boots slip on a smooth, iced-over oak root. His legs fly out from under his heavy body. The soldier falls silently onto his back, sliding rapidly down the icy slope of the hollow. His heavy rifle slams into his ribs, knocking the last of the air from his lungs. Impact. Mukhtar's body slams hard into the ribbed side of the half-track. The full aluminum canteen on his belt strikes the cold Krupp steel with a swing. A metallic ring pierces the short, ringing pause between artillery salvos. The sound is unnaturally loud, clear. It flies over the snow crust like a piercing alarm, echoing off the trees. "Stay down! Don't move!" John Bershin hisses. His hand instantly grips his pistol. Too late.
The distinctive clang was heard. 50 meters to the right, on the ridge of the ravine, a German infantry line has gone to ground. Wehrmacht soldiers are combing the left flank in a tight formation. The dry click of a flare gun sounds. A blindingly white illumination flare on a parachute whistles into the black sky. A deathly, flickering magnesium light floods the hollow. 6 prone bodies in white camo smocks against the dirty steel of the half-track become perfect targets. The soldiers' shadows jerk sharply on the snow. A long machine gun burst rips the silence. A German machine gun crew opens a wall of fire to kill. 7.92 millimeter caliber. Heavy bullets hack through frozen branches with a dry crunch right over the saboteurs' heads. The snow around the men instantly boils into fountains centimeters from their faces. The lead rain pins the group tightly to the frozen ground. It is absolutely impossible to lift a head. One move means death. Mukhtar gives a short cry through clenched teeth. A machine gun bullet punches through his right calf, shattering the bone. Dark blood pulses onto the snow, leaving steaming stains. The soldier frantically grabs his wounded leg, trying to pinch the severed artery. "Into the woods! Scatter! On the double! Move!" Jean Bershin shouts. The order barely carries over the continuous crackle of gunfire and the clatter of bolts. No one can move. The German gunner works cold-bloodedly. He fires short, measured 3-round bursts, keeping 6 men in his sights. He pins them to the armor of the abandoned vehicle, giving them no chance to break for safety. On the left, infantry carbines begin to snap frequently. Enemy riflemen take the Soviet group in a tight pincer. The trap finally snaps shut. The perfect sabotage plan dissolves in blood. Sedek Bey lies behind a frozen stump. The wood cracks loudly from constant hits. Heavy bullets chip off sharp pieces of bark, striking the 19-year-old loader painfully in the face. Panic tears at frayed nerves. The situation is critical. In 1 minute, the Germans will be on top of them, throwing hand grenades. The loader rolls sharply onto his back, moving out of the direct line of fire. His right hand frantically pulls a defensive grenade from a canvas pouch. The ribbed, cast-iron body chills his sweat-slicked palm. 19 years old. His whole short life now compresses into the distance of a single throw. 30 meters to the flashes of the enemy machine gun on the edge of the ravine. From a prone position, the heavy grenade won't reach. Thick bushes and the steep slope are in the way. He needs a clear trajectory. "Cover me!" he screams right into Mukhtar's ear. The wounded soldier turns pale from blood loss, but clenches his teeth. Overcoming the shock of the pain, he levels his heavy rifle. He fires blind, guessing at the yellow flashes on the ridge. Cycles the bolt. Shot.
The casing clatters onto the ice. Serekbay hooks his index finger into the ring, pulls the pin. Sharp metal cuts his skin. He grips the safety lever tight. Deep breath, a lunge. The loader stands up to his full height, a lone target in the dazzling light of the slowly fading flare. Time freezes. The enemy gunner notices the movement and swings the hot barrel right at him. Serekbay sees the slow rotation of the black metal. The Soviet soldier takes a wide swing. All his accumulated muscle power, all the rage of a cornered beast, all the horror of the icy night is poured into a single motion from the shoulder. The grenade goes up in a high arc. A return burst rips through Serekbay's left shoulder. The powerful kinetic impact knocks him off his feet. He falls face first into the dirty snow. Sharp pain arrives only a second later. The grenade lands exactly on the berm of the machine gun nest's trench. The 3-second fuse delay expires. A dull explosion. A fireball tears the earth to pieces. The shriek of cast iron fragments cuts the air.
The German machine gun goes dead, the barrel falling into the mud. The screams of wounded enemies merge with the moan of the wind. "Get up, run, into the thicket, move out," Jean Bashin commands. He runs to the wounded Mukhtar, yanks him up by the collar of his greatcoat, and throws the soldier's arm over his shoulders. The fire point is suppressed. The German ring is broken in one narrow spot. The group plunges into the saving, dense darkness of the winter forest. Behind them, enemy artillery begins to howl frantically again. The dirty struggle for survival has begun. The German tank division's radio net is drowning in hysteria. Operators lose their voices through the crackle of static. The Wehrmacht's iron discipline breaks under the weight of an inexplicable fact. Mechanics feverishly pry open the armor plates of the engine compartments. They rip off the iced-over fuel pump covers. Fingers in greasy gloves reach inside the machinery. Inside is a thick gray mass. It reeks of animal fat and burnt metal. "Center, this is Vanguard. We are paralyzed. Engines are dead. Repeat reason for halt. Clear the filters. Order is to continue the march." Impossible. Filters are clogged with an unknown substance. It's not ice. Consistency of glue. Pumps burned out on ignition. No spare parts. Signal officers in the headquarters rip off their headsets. They refuse to believe the reports. The vaunted motors have stopped. Millions of dollars worth of Krupp steel has turned into useless chunks of frozen iron. 200 heavy combat vehicles sit as dead weight on a frozen road just 15 kilometers from the objective. The price of this entire invincible armored armada is zeroed out by 24 bars of cheap laundry soap. Jean Bershin's cold engineering calculation ruthlessly breaks the back of German logistics. The caustic alkaline emulsion has plugged the steel arteries of the tank wedge. Mechanics strike the icy armor with heavy wrenches in impotent rage. They are doomed. Flushing a fuel system in a piercing wind at -34 degrees is physically impossible. The lines must be completely dismantled. The offensive on the Soviet capital chokes in dirty soap suds. Teletypes clatter out urgent encrypted messages. Army Group Headquarters receives the report. The text of the dispatch shocks the General Staff. An entire strike tank division stopped by a crude chemical reaction. The Vanguard completely incinerated by a single camouflaged heavy gun. A narrow forest defile blocked by the burning wrecks of the lead vehicles. The road to Moscow is securely locked. News flies directly to Berlin via secure cable channels. The offices of the Reich Chancellery tremble. Hitler flies into a rage at the absolute absurdity of the situation. The Führer hysterically demands the immediate execution of the responsible officers. The situation is catastrophic for propaganda.
The master race, armed with the most advanced technology in the world, stopped by a handful of frost-bitten Soviet saboteurs. The pride of the Third Reich is ruthlessly trampled in the bloody snow outside Moscow. The blow to the reputation of the Panzertruppe is critical. The order from Berlin returns lightning fast. Strictly limit the spread of information. The incident is immediately and completely classified. Not a single Wehrmacht soldier must learn how easily and cheaply their invincible machines are destroyed. Documents with radio intercepts are hidden in steel safes with red secret stamps. Witnesses of this humiliating failure are ordered to be liquidated immediately. 7 men must disappear. Their names must be erased from history. The command of the stalled division immediately forms a special punitive group. The task is crystal clear. Find and destroy the 7 Soviet suicide missionaries. Grind their bodies to powder. Leave no trace of their existence. Canvas-topped trucks roll up to the site of the slaughtered vanguard.
Heavy wooden tailgates are dropped. Elite SS soldiers jump down onto the trampled, soot-blackened snow. Black wool uniforms are hidden under loose white camo smocks. Submachine guns are gripped in their hands. Canine handlers struggle to hold massive East European shepherds on leashes. The dogs wheeze, lunging forward, already catching the sweet scent of fresh human blood in the bitter frost. A loud, vicious barking cuts the frozen air, merging with the groan of cooling metal from the knocked-out tanks. The commander of the punitive squad, a tall Obersturmführer with an iron cross at his neck, gives a short wave of his hand. "Pick up the scent. No prisoners. Kill them all." The dogs bolt. The animals surge into the dark forest thicket, leaving deep furrows in the virgin snow. Behind them, the trained killers follow in a wide skirmish line. They are professionals. They are perfectly equipped. They have hot food in thermoses, powerful portable radios, and absolute superiority in manpower. Against them are 6 utterly exhausted, bleeding Soviet soldiers and 1 tank crew that has fired off its entire combat load. The hunt begins. The SS methodically comb every meter of the forest. Powerful flashlights catch broken branches out of the saving darkness. Crimson drops are clearly visible on the white crust. It is Mukhtar's blood. The trail is laid out with perfect clarity. The squad moves fast, not hiding. They know the saboteurs won't get far through deep snow with a heavy casualty on their hands. The dogs strain at their leashes, their slobbering muzzles low to the frozen ground. The animal's breath comes in thick clouds of steam. The Obersturmführer checks the magazine of his weapon. The bolt clacks home. The mechanism works flawlessly. The steel machine of destruction, having received a personal order from the Reich capital, picks up speed. It will not stop until it has soaked up the blood of each of the 7 men who dared to humiliate the German army with a bar of dirty soap. Death follows the bloody trail, ruthlessly closing the distance with every second. The winter forest closes in behind the German hunters, quickly turning into a giant death trap for the Soviet group. The perfect icy snare is ready to snap shut for the second time this long night. There is no way out. The ammo rack is bone dry. The treads are frozen solid into the unyielding ground. The 76mm gun spits out its last smoking brass casing. The clang of the open breech sounds like a dry sentence. 47 tons of Soviet steel turn from an impregnable fortress into a mass grave. Jean Berchin heavily lowers the release lever. "Remove the firing pin, abandoning the vehicle, into the woods." The driver mechanic hammers the traverse mechanisms with a heavy sledge. The mangled metal will serve the enemy no more.
One by one, the crew leaves the frozen interior of the turret. Outside, they are met by a piercing wind and minus 34 degrees. Heat is sucked from under their padded jackets in seconds. Another German artillery shell bursts 50 meters away, showering the retreating men with clods of frozen dirt. The group reunites at the tree line. Mukhtar, the wounded infantryman, hangs heavily on his comrade's shoulders. The bullet shattered the bone. Thick blood from his mangled leg leaves a wide crimson stripe on the untouched white snow, a perfect visual marker for any pursuit. Sedek Bey frantically clutches his left shoulder. Pulsing pain beats in time with his racing heart. 6 men slowly sink into the black, unwelcoming thicket of the winter forest. Behind them, the roar grows rapidly. Dog barks pierce the silence of the frost-bound night. The elite punitive squad is right on their heels. Large East European shepherds strain violently against their leather leashes. The distance is closing catastrophically fast.
Breath burns the throat like fire. Lungs work at their absolute limit, greedily sucking in the icy air. Every step through the deep, powdery snow requires immense muscular effort. Legs cramp hard. The wounded Mukhtar loses consciousness from blood loss. His body becomes unbearably heavy, like a sack of wet sand. Jean Berchin silently takes the wounded man by the other edge of his wool greatcoat. They drag him along, forcing their way through the brush. Snow packs tightly into their boot tops, melts from residual body heat, and immediately freezes again, turning their foot wraps into blocks of ice. The whistle of a heavy bullet snaps a thick branch right over the radio man's head. The German hunters have reached visual range. A short firefight erupts instantly. The SS fire long bursts from their submachine guns. Lead shatters tree bark with a crackle. "To arms! Leapfrog back!" The commander's order cuts the air. 3 soldiers drop into the deep snow in sync. Dry rifle cracks ring out. Accurate return fire forces the pursuers to take cover behind trunks. This buys precious, life-saving seconds. The squad makes a desperate dash deeper into the dense deadfall. Frozen branches lash cruelly at their faces, leaving deep, bleeding scratches. A flat, dark strip appears ahead, a frozen forest stream. The ice surface is covered with a thin, treacherous layer of snow. Beneath it, the black void of fast-moving water is sensed. The strong current keeps the stream from freezing to the bottom. "To the other side! 3-meter spacing! Move!" One by one, the soldiers step cautiously onto the smooth surface. The ice groans with a deep, threatening crack under their weight. Sedek Bey crosses first, his worn soles sliding. The radio man crawls after him. Jean Berchin and the driver drag Mukhtar. The wounded man regains consciousness from the piercing pain. He makes a wrong move, reflexively trying to lean on his good leg. His boot slips sharply on an iced-over stone. His heavy body crashes down onto the fragile ice. A terrifying, cannon-like crack rings out. The supporting surface shatters in sharp zigzags. Mukhtar instantly plunges into a wide hole. Black, churning water immediately closes over his head. The driver manages to jump back, nearly falling in after him. Jean Berchin drops his chest onto the edge, reaching his hands forward. Mukhtar surfaces. His eyes are wide with primal, animal terror. The water temperature is 0 degrees Celsius. Cold shock paralyzes the central nervous system in exactly 2 seconds. Breath is cut off completely. His chest is seized by a steel, insurmountable spasm. He cannot inhale. He cannot scream. Only a wheezing, strangled sound escapes his open mouth. His heavy, instantly soaked greatcoat pulls him down like a lead weight.
His wounded leg stops functioning entirely, hanging like dead weight. Jean Berchin grips him by the collar with a death grip. He tries to haul him up. The thin ice crumbles under the weight of the two struggling bodies. The hole relentlessly widens. Mukhtar looks directly into the commander's eyes. In that wide-eyed stare, there is no plea for help, only a crystalline, horrific realization of the inevitable end. The wounded man's fingers frantically claw at the smooth edge of the ice, tearing his fingernails to the quick. Blood instantly mixes with the icy slush. The barking of the German shepherds sounds only 100 meters behind them. The enemy is breathing down their necks. Mukhtar's muscles turn to stone. Physiology takes absolute precedence over the will to live. His weakened heart cannot handle the thermal overload. His grip on the slick ice fails. Jean Berchin pulls with all his might, tearing tendons, but the soaked gear adds 40 kilograms of dead weight to the drowning man. The ice cracks treacherously again, threatening to pull the commander under. Mukhtar's fingers uncurl. The collar slowly slips from Jean Berchin's numbed hands.
The black water silently swallows the body. Only pink foam and expanding ripples remain on the churned surface. Life ends without a shred of pathos or heroic speeches, only the dry, cold physics of cardiac arrest. Jean Berchin slowly rises to his rubbery legs. Water drips from his iced-over mittens onto the snow. The commander's gaze is absolutely empty. There is no room for grief in it. Grief is an unaffordable luxury. Now, only the naked mathematical calculation of survival exists. The dogs are following the blood trail exactly. That trail ends forever at the hole in the ice. The crew stood frozen on the other bank, staring at the black hole in the ice with primal horror. Serik Bey whimpers softly, agonizingly through clenched teeth. He shakes with a violent, non-stop tremor. Tears freeze instantly on his cheeks, turning into transparent glass. His jaws chatter from the mounting hypothermia and total nervous exhaustion. "Into the stream." The commander's voice sounds flat. Lifeless and flat. The soldiers don't understand. They look at him with glazed, uncomprehending eyes. "Into the water, everyone. We're going down the stream bed. The water will mask the scent. The dogs will lose the trail." "We'll freeze, Commander. We'll be dead in an hour," the driver mechanic rasps. "If we stay on the bank, we're dead in 5 minutes. Into the water. Follow the order." It is an order that brutally overrides the basic human instinct for self-preservation. The men, silently, resignedly, step into the flowing water. The icy current burns their legs through the thin boot shafts. The cold stabs into living flesh like thousands of white-hot needles. Their joints begin to ache unbearably from the very first second of immersion. The water quickly reaches their knees. Further downstream, the depth constantly increases. Sharp, guttural shouts from the hunters ring out behind them. The Germans reach the hole in the forest ice. The dogs dart chaotically along the bank, barking furiously at the black, empty water. The blood trail has vanished. The shepherds whimper piteously, having completely lost the scent of their prey. The engineer's cruel trick works perfectly. But the price of this decision is colossal. 5 survivors trudge through a localized frozen hell, their feet turned into slabs of dead, senseless meat long ago. Breath escapes in labored, rattling wheezes. Thick frost coats eyebrows and eyelashes. Their faces have taken on a terrifying, waxy, deathly hue. The limits of human physiology have been shattered. The frozen body functions solely on the residual reserves of a fractured psyche.
Zanbershin leads the way, heavily and methodically crushing thin ice beneath his boots. He never looks back. Looking back is strictly forbidden. Behind them lies only death. Ahead is the exact same death, merely postponed by a few hours. They silently carry this brief reprieve through the frozen forest, sinking step by step into a frigid, hopeless madness. 5 shapeless shadows crawl slowly through the deep, packed snow. Exactly 200 meters remain to the safety of the Soviet trenches. The soldiers' legs turned into dead, senseless blocks of ice long ago. Circulation in their limbs has ceased. A step. Another step. Raw, bloodied knees leave dark, wet streaks on the white crust. Breath tears through frozen lungs with a whistling sound. The air temperature holds steady at -34 degrees. Zanbershin falls face first into a snowdrift. He pushes himself up. His hands refuse to obey. Their faces are covered in the black, hard crust of severe frostbite. They feel no pain. The central nervous system has shut down the periphery to preserve the last scraps of precious heat. The brain registers only one single objective: the dark, saving line of the forest ahead. That is where the front line runs. The radio man wheezes hoarsely, agonizingly, and slumps onto his side. His eyes roll back. The driver-mechanic silently grabs him by his wide leather belt and drags him across the snow. No one has the strength left for words. Every movement burns the final crumbs of calories. The edge of a deep ravine looms indistinctly ahead. Beyond it lie the fortified positions of the Soviet infantry. Cover is close. Salvation feels tangible. A sharp, lashing crack hits their eardrums. The report of a heavy flare gun shatters the dead silence of the night. A German star shell hisses into the zenith. A magnesium flash floods every meter of the cratered earth with a deathly white, flickering light. Night instantly turns into artificial day. The shadows of the Red Army soldiers sprawled on the ground are sharply etched against the filthy snow. The executioners caught up to them at the very threshold. The Obersturmführer had calculated the exhausted saboteurs' retreat path with mathematical precision. The elite SS squad had bypassed the frozen stream in a wide arc, cutting off the only escape route right at the line of contact. Black figures in loose white smocks rise in unison from behind natural snow embankments. 10 trained men. Volmer's submachine guns are aimed directly at the 5 haggard men. Distance: 30 meters. The trap has finally snapped shut. The German officer's engineering calculation has surpassed the desperation of the survivors. "Engage!" Zanbershin rasps. The command breaks into a dry, barking cough. He reaches slowly for his holster. Frostbitten, unresponsive fingers struggle to unfasten the stiff, frozen leather. The heavy pistol settles into his palm. The weapon feels unbearably, unnaturally heavy. A brief meeting engagement begins. The dry, rhythmic chatter of German submachine guns rips through the freezing air. Heavy lead shatters the ice around the fallen Red Army men. Sharp shards of frozen earth lash their faces. Zanbershin racks the slide with force. He fires blindly at the bright muzzle flashes. 1, 2, 3 short shots. The slide clicks dry and locks back. The magazine is bone dry. The driver-mechanic frantically pulls the trigger of a captured carbine. A dull misfire. Frozen weapon grease has seized the firing pin tight.
The weapon has turned into a useless stick. The ammunition is completely spent. The Soviet group has no rounds left. They have only combat knives, short entrenching shovels, and concentrated despair. The Germans instantly cease fire. They understand the tactical situation perfectly. The Obersturmführer barks a short, clipped command in German. The executioners slowly, professionally tighten the circle. Step by step. They intend to take the elusive saboteurs alive. The prisoners must provide a detailed account of the chemical sabotage recipe that annihilated the vanguard. The light of the first flare begins to dim. Another pop rings out. A second flare hisses and hangs over the battlefield. Serik Bey lies face down in the filthy, trampled snow. The 19-year-old loader breathes in short, ragged gasps. His left shoulder was pierced by a through-and-through bullet wound half an hour ago. The thick blood froze long ago, gluing the stiff wool of his greatcoat to the jagged wound. His right hand fumbles frantically at the canvas pouches on his belt. Numb fingers find cold, ribbed metal. 2 fragmentation grenades, the last tactical reserve, the final iron argument in this fight. Animal, primal terror completely paralyzes his body. The instinct for self-preservation hysterically demands he press into the frozen earth, merge with it, vanish from the sights. The SS men draw closer. 20 meters. 15 meters. The loud crunch of snow under heavy jackboots sounds like a hangman's relentless countdown. Jean Berchin silently draws a wide knife. The engineer coolly prepares for a final, absolutely hopeless hand-to-hand struggle. Death stands inches away, breathing a frost-laden wind into his face. Serik Bey understands the brutal arithmetic of this battle. 5 exhausted, unarmed men against 10 professional killers. There is no chance of survival. A frontal breakthrough is impossible by the laws of physics. With a sudden jerk, the boy yanks the safety pins from both grenades simultaneously. The metal rings remain hanging on his gnarled, bloodied fingers. The safety levers fly into the snow with a dry, metallic flick. The primers begin to hiss ominously. The fuse delay, exactly 3 seconds. Serik Bey lets out a scream. It is not the scream of a fearless hero for a propaganda poster. It is a piercing, cracking howl of primal terror from a cornered beast driven to the absolute limit of endurance. The howl of a young man who wants to live with a maddening intensity, but knows for a fact that his heart will stop in 3 seconds. He lunges onto his unresponsive legs with a violent jerk. He makes a desperate, convulsive dash straight toward the advancing black figures. The SS men snap their short barrels up. Dense bursts of automatic fire mercilessly tear through the night silence. Heavy 9mm rounds slam hard into the 19-year-old's thin chest, stitching through his padded jacket. The powerful kinetic impact knocks him back, stealing his breath, but he takes another step. Another unthinkable, impossible step on pure adrenaline. Hot blood fountains from his punctured lungs. He collapses with a heavy thud, right at the feet of the German line. His convulsing hands grip the hissing, ribbed cast iron in a death grip. The German officer recoils. The eyes of the professional executioners widen in primal horror at the realization of the inevitable. A dull, twin explosion merges into one monstrous, deafening roar. A blinding fireball rips through the darkness with a howl. Hundreds of sharp iron fragments shred the men at point-blank range, instantly turning uniforms and flesh into a bloody pulp.
The shockwave knocks down and concusses the remaining executioners. The monolithic line is broken.
A deep, smoking black crater, reeking of burnt TNT, forms at the site of the blast. "Forward," Jean Berchin rasps, heavily pushing himself up from his knees. The 4 survivors immediately bolt into the resulting fire gap. They run directly over the smoking remains of their enemies. They run blindly through the thick stench of burnt explosives and torn human meat. Dry, erratic shots from the concussed SS men snap after them. The saving darkness of the forest greedily swallows the silhouettes of the Soviet soldiers. The path to their own lines is finally open. The frozen front line has been successfully crossed. The human limit was broken, at the cost of 1 young life. The snow in front of the Soviet positions is heavily scarred with fresh artillery craters. 4 living ghosts crawl out of the black forest thicket. The frost has finally seized every movement. Joints crack dryly with every attempt to bend a leg. Their white camouflage smocks are soaked through with clotted blood, swamp muck, and gun oil. The fabric is stiff as a board. Ahead, the uneven parapet of the forward security trench looms darkly. The sharp, metallic click of a rifle bolt slices through the silence. "Halt! Password!" comes the high-pitched, frightened voice of a young sentry. The barrel of a Mosin Nagant trembles slightly in the dark, aimed directly at Jean Berchin's chest. The soldier's finger squeezes the trigger until his knuckle is white. One nervous twitch, 1 second of hesitation, and a heavy 7.62 millimeter round will finish what the German executioners could not. Nerves on the front line are always stretched to the breaking point. Jean Berchin tries to part his cracked, deeply bleeding lips. His vocal cords have completely atrophied from the monstrous cold. Only a hoarse, whistling wheeze escapes his throat. He makes an inhuman effort of will, forcing his laryngeal muscles to work. "Blizzard. Response. Snowstorm. Friendly." The barrel slowly lowers. The 4 saboteurs roll heavily over the icy parapet. They literally collapse onto the packed snow at the bottom of the trench. Infantrymen rush over to catch their limp bodies. The thick smell of cheap tobacco, unwashed bodies, and burnt powder hits their nostrils. It is the acrid smell of life. 30 minutes later, the haggard men are dragged into the warm battalion staff dugout. In the corner, a thick iron potbelly stove roars with heat. The saving warmth immediately becomes a new, sophisticated torturer. The sudden temperature shift triggers an unbearable, throbbing pain in their frostbitten limbs. Thick blood forces its way through constricted capillaries with immense effort. The driver mechanic howls dully, like an animal, biting into the filthy sleeve of his tank jacket to keep from screaming. Jean Berchin stands perfectly straight. The former engineer's face has turned into a motionless, black mask. A duty major sits behind a crude plank table. An operational staff map is spread unevenly on the table, heavily marked with red and blue arrows. The blue arrows are pushing relentlessly toward the freezing capital. "Report, Commander." The major's voice sounds utterly exhausted and irritable. He expects a standard report of a lost combat vehicle and a failed mission. A German tank armada cannot physically be stopped by a single ambush gun. Jean Berchin leans heavily on the unplaned edge of the table with his frost-burned hands. The wood bites into his raw skin. Enemy vanguard consisting of 11 heavy vehicles completely destroyed. Burning steel hulls have permanently blocked the forest defile. The main forces of the Panzer Division have been halted, engines disabled by chemical means. Estimated delay of the column's march,
No less than 96 hours. A heavy, dense silence hangs in the cramped dugout. Only the steady roar of the flames in the red-hot stove can be heard. The Major slowly raises his bloodshot eyes. The officer's gaze expresses absolute, crystalline disbelief. 96 hours. 200 functional tanks. Are you in your right mind, Lieutenant? What did you stop them with? Shamanic spells? At that moment, the heavy canvas flap of the dugout is thrown aside. A thick-set, stocky man in a high-quality general's greatcoat strides inside. A hard, leaden scowl instantly scans the cramped room. Front Commander Zhukov. The officers present immediately snap to attention. Jean Bershin straightens his aching back with immense difficulty. The general walks straight to the table. He carelessly tosses his leather gloves onto the spread-out map. Radio intercepts confirm it, Zhukov cuts in dryly. 3 German tank regiments are dead in their tracks. Enemy mechanics are reporting total fuel system failure in the clear. The road to Moscow is wide open. Siberian reserve divisions are already unloading at the junctions. You gave us a 4-day head start. How? Jean Bershin looks directly into the general's heavy eyes. He answers monotonically, as if at a chemistry exam. Crude emulsion, synthetic gasoline and crushed alkaline laundry soap, an irreversible chemical reaction at temperatures below -30 degrees. Fuel filters cemented by a dense mass, lines clogged, pumps burned out from the overload. Zhukov is silent for a long minute. The scale of the unconventional engineering solution is assessed instantly. A localized night slaughter has suddenly gained the colossal weight of a strategic victory. An equation, coolly solved in a frozen trench, has completely nullified the operational plans of an entire German army group. No pathos, only dry applied physics and the monstrous price of human blood. Who didn't make it back from the group? The commander asks briefly. Serik Bey, loader, blew himself up with 2 grenades during the withdrawal. Mukhtar, gunner, drowned crossing the stream. The 3rd infantryman was killed by a sniper. Zhukov gives a short nod. Grief is immediately dismissed. War requires the regular expenditure of human resources. From the deep shadow behind the general's broad back, a special department officer steps forward noiselessly. Thick, yellowish sheets of paper are placed on the table. A glass inkwell is set beside them. Non-disclosure agreement, the Ossibist intones in a colorless, metallic voice. State secret, Category 1. The chemical sabotage recipe, the exact location of the operation, the names of the group members, and the final results are strictly classified. Any careless mention, the maximum penalty. Military tribunal and immediate execution by firing squad. Sign here. Jean Bershin takes the wooden dip pen. His cramped fingers refuse to bend. With colossal effort, he scrawls his name on the paper. The other 3 survivors sign silently after him. The engineer's intellect becomes a secret, invisible weapon of the Soviet army. None of the enemy must ever learn of this fatal technical vulnerability. The Ossibist neatly gathers the sheets. He tucks the papers into a stiff leather folder. The lock snaps shut with a loud, dry click. 4 small cardboard boxes are placed on the wooden table. Zhukov opens them personally with his stiff fingers. Inside, the orders of the red banner gleam dully with fresh red enamel. The general gives no speeches about heroism, the symphonies of a great battle, or the sacred altars of the fatherland. There is absolutely no room here for beautiful, empty words. For the precise execution of orders, Zhukov says curtly. Jean Bershin takes the award. The cold metal of the order sits heavily in the commander's bloodied, raw palm. I serve the Soviet Union. The decoration ceremony is over. Mundane, mechanical. This is not the finale of a grand epic. It is the closing of another bloody accounting ledger. The assigned task is complete. The destroyed resource has been replenished with paper and metal. The duty major rolls out a new topographical map.
Lieutenant Janbushin's crew. Tomorrow, at exactly 0600 hours, you will receive a new combat vehicle at the loading station. A heavy tank with a full combat load. Orders: immediately deploy to the northern defensive sector. Occupy your firing position no later than 1600 hours. The four men slowly exit the stifling staff dugout. A fresh, biting frost wind slams into their burned faces. The darkness before the December dawn seems completely impenetrable. The medals are carelessly shoved into the deep pockets of their filthy, padded trousers. None of the survivors feel joy. None feel the long-awaited relief. Unconditional pride was left behind forever in a distant time of peace. All that remains here is dirty, deadly, endless work. They bought 4 days for a bleeding country at the cost of their comrades' lives. They broke the steel spine of an entire panzer division with a bar of common soap. But the global war has not ended. Death has not taken a day off. Tomorrow they will climb back into the cramped, freezing steel gut of a new tank. Tomorrow there will again be the deafening clang of the sliding breech block, the acrid smell of burnt metal, and someone else's blood on frozen hands. The giant mechanism of the endless meat grinder continues to turn without pause, demanding new shipments of fresh human flesh. Janbushin silently pulls out a crumpled cigarette. He lights up, shielding the dim glow in his calloused palms. He takes a deep drag of the acrid, bitter smoke. The dry click of a bolt from a nearby trench announces the start of a new, bloody day. Survival becomes a daily routine. Paper absorbs blood much worse than frozen snow. December 1941 is coming to an end. The mechanism of total war continues to grind through fresh divisions without stopping, pulverizing hundreds of thousands of human lives. The thin sheet with Lieutenant Janbushin's dry, handwritten report settles at the bottom of a thick, gray cardboard folder. The Special Department officer slams a heavy brass seal onto the melted wax. The dark red, acrid ink bites deep into the porous texture of the paper. The harsh "Top Secret" stamp permanently seals the story of the night battle at the forest defile. The state machine monopolizes the right to the truth. The precise engineering calculation, the unconventional chemical formula of the soap emulsion, and the exact coordinates of the scorched German tank vanguard instantly become a protected military secret of the highest category. The thick cardboard folder is sent by special courier to Moscow. Its final destination, a deep concrete basement of the Central Special Vault. A heavy, armored steel door on massive hinges slams shut with a dull clang. The multi-level deadbolt lock clicks dryly, cutting the room off from the outside world. The air in the vault is dry, stale, and absolutely dead. A powerful ventilation system hums continuously, maintaining a strictly set constant temperature. Humidity levels are monitored by automatic sensors. There is a total absence of seasons here. There is no change of day and night. Here, time physically stops, turning into endless rows of high metal shelves disappearing into the gloom. Tens of thousands of identical gray folders lie tightly packed on cold iron shelves. Millions of severed human fates compressed into sparse typewritten lines and dry casualty figures. The story of the composite crew of a heavy Soviet tank becomes merely another inventory number
in an endless, faceless secret catalog. The personal names of Commander Jean Bershin, the young loader Sarik Bey, the fallen infantryman Mukhtar, and the rest of the surviving soldiers are ruthlessly struck from the public record. The ironclad non-disclosure agreement works perfectly. The system knows how to guard its secrets reliably. The surviving saboteurs maintain absolute silence. They return to the front.
They burn alive in new combat vehicles, freeze in new trenches, receive new heavy shrapnel wounds. They carry the brutal truth of the icy trap with them forever. Death reliably and permanently seals their mangled lips. Long decades pass. Historical eras change relentlessly. The Great World War ends. Generations of political leaders are completely replaced. Political maps of continents are ruthlessly redrawn. Old states collapse with a roar. New concrete borders are erected. The high-quality steel of the wrecked German heavy machines was long ago cut by torches and melted down into peaceful agricultural tractors. The frozen bones of the killed Soviet saboteurs and the executed German executioners have long since rotted in the deep soil outside Moscow. Every new spring, a fast forest stream washes away the last material traces of that terrible December night. Nature slowly but surely heals the inflicted wounds. Young pines grow from the very bottom of deep artillery craters. But inside the concrete special vault, absolutely nothing changes. The secret cardboard folder continues to lie motionless on steel shelf number 42. Fine gray dust settles slowly, year after year, onto the smooth cardboard. The old paper inevitably yellows at the edges. The typewritten font of the typewriter fades. The purple ink of Lieutenant Jean Bershin's quick signature dims, losing its original color. 73 years of absolute, dead silence. 73 years of artificial, state-created oblivion. The chemical recipe for the makeshift halting of an elite tank division remains locked in the darkness. The real price of the 4 strategic days won remains reliably hidden under a thick layer of cracked red wax. The deathbed despair of a 19-year-old boy who blew himself up with 2 iron grenades is locked tight in a massive metal cabinet. The harsh, unpleasant physics of survival have been replaced by official, ideologically vetted reports from the Information Bureau. The year 2014 arrives. The massive state machine initiates a planned, routine procedure for the partial declassification of old military archives. The heavy, rusted gears of military bureaucracy slowly grind into motion. A special interdepartmental commission is created by order from above. Experts monotonically, day after day, review thousands of old, dusty cases. They evaluate the current relevance of the locked information. They analyze expired statutes of limitations. They make dry, legal decisions. The heavy steel door of the special vault opens with a loud creak. The sharp, cold light of fluorescent lamps instantly hits the long rows of shelves. A state archive worker walks slowly down the narrow aisle. His measured footsteps echo loudly under the low concrete vault. He carefully checks inventory numbers against a long, printed paper list. He stops at the correct metal shelf. He reaches out. Fingers clad in white cotton gloves carefully take the old gray folder. The parched cardboard gives a dry, brittle crunch in the ensuing silence. The folder lands heavily on the wide, polished wooden table of the reading room. The archivist picks up a utility knife with a retractable blade. The sharp steel cuts through the thick, heavy binding thread with a dry, unpleasant rasp. The old red wax snaps, crumbling into small, sharp fragments across the smooth tabletop. The stiff cover slowly opens.
The perfect silence of the archive is broken only by the quiet rustle of dry pages being turned. The yellow light of a focused desk lamp snatches the faded lines of the combat report from decades of oblivion. The printed text is completely devoid of any emotion. The text contains only concrete, indisputable facts. Time of action: December 1941. Ambient temperature: -34 degrees. Original composition of the sabotage group: 7 men. Materials expended during the operation: 24 bars of standard laundry soap. Precisely confirmed destroyed enemy equipment: 11 heavy tanks of the German vanguard. Final strategic result: total disruption of the planned offensive of the Wehrmacht Panzer Division. Guaranteed march delay of 96 hours. Irrecoverable losses of the Soviet group. 3 men killed. The surrounding world finally gains open access to this classified information. The black letters form a perfectly clear picture of total physical exhaustion and mathematically precise, cold calculation. The intellect of the former petroleum engineer, which remained clear throughout, stands out sharply through the dry, clipped bureaucratic phrasing. The mechanism of the makeshift chemical sabotage is fully revealed. The physics of creating a destructive emulsion from synthetic gasoline and cheap alkali finally cease to be a relevant threat to national security. The personal names of the dead and the survivors officially return to the historical record. The bureaucratic process is fully complete. The brutal story of the icy defile is finally extracted from the archival gloom. The soap sabotage recipe becomes the dry basis for new historical and technical studies. The very fact of successfully stopping 200 heavy armored vehicles with a single makeshift chemical reaction is officially recognized and documented. No solemn commemorative ceremonies are held for this occasion. No new bronze monuments are erected in the corridors of the archive. Human emotions remain forever outside the brackets of official documents. The state simply records the legal fact of the removal of former restrictions. The folder remains open on the table. The thin, yellowed pages forever hold the invisible prints of fingers worn to the bone and bitten by frost. Order of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, Order number 217. The exact date of the document's full declassification: May 8th, 2014. The gray cardboard folder, coated in decades of dust, lies motionless on the archivist's polished wooden table.